Welcome to Retro Racer. This is going to be a series of videos on my retirement project as we've retired early to northern Thailand. I've been researching E30 BMWs for a couple of months in both Australia and once we got here, and this one really caught my eye. The car was based between northern Thailand here, Chiang Mai, and Bangkok, as the guy works in both cities. So we arranged to fly down to Bangkok early one morning, which is only about $45 Australian each one way, about 30 US roughly. And we met the guy at the government transport office where he arranged to have the vehicle inspected for us, as the tax or registration was 2 weeks overdue. So I greatly appreciated that at the time. There's more about what unfolded after, but basically a test drive just up and down the road from the government inspection office showed that the car drove really well and was actually much more powerful than I ever remember any of these M10 B18 motors to be. This was a very good example. So we stayed overnight in Bangkok at Nonnie's friend's place and went out for a nice dinner. And the next day we started an easy drive back, and we spread the drive over 2 easy days so we could stop and have a bit of a look around and meals and so forth. We soon found out that the car had pretty severe vibration issues once we got above about 90 kilometres an hour, and if we were willing to push it to a much higher speed, there was actually a clean spot where there was no vibration, but any lift off of the throttle or any change like that would re-induce the vibration. So we mostly just cruised at about 90 kilometres an hour via the GPS, which was only is well under 3,000 RPM. The car ran faultlessly all the way home, and it was actually pretty good on fuel, considering I reckon the thing has never been tuned in years, and the air filter showed the same upon inspection later on. So we averaged about 9 litres per 100 kilometres with air conditioning on full blast all the way. But then about 90 minutes away from home, on the final leg, the air conditioner stopped working. So I stopped and had a look. The compressor was running, the belt hadn't come off. So obviously the gas had leaked out. We've had that addressed since. I'll make that a subject of another video though. So I started researching tyres, and I found these Nexans online, which are available here in Thailand at a very good price, and I'd heard good things about them. And that price that you see on the screen there is from Be Quick, which is like a massive tyre retailer and suspension place Thailand wide, but I just went to our local shop that's always helped us, and they said straight off the bat 2,300 baht including fitting, which is about 110 Australian or 75 US. So as the tyre guys were doing their thing, the head mechanic called me out to look at the chassis and showed me the unfolding drama of the cracked chassis and the rust holes everywhere. And I explained to them via Google Translate that I trusted the guy that I bought it off and that there was no rust or any underbody damage. I'll just leave you to have a look at these slides as they go through. All of my tools and so forth are still shipping over from Australia. They've been delayed by a month. So I started ordering up what I thought I would need, as in a little inverter welder, cordless grinder, bits and pieces, as well as this shed. Had a slab poured for it. So basically lost a couple of weeks just getting all of that organised before I could get a start on this. So the next few slides before the video really takes off is just of bits and pieces that I purchased and how I started pressing out the bushes out of the control arm and pressing them back in. I just wanted to see if I could manage that with this kit that I bought online, and it worked pretty well. I also purchased myself a trolley based toolbox, so I just keep the basic set of hand tools that I've had here for a couple of years now and get a start on things. Here's just a couple more slides and then we get into the main video. So this is the left-hand chassis rail. It's a right-hand drive car being in Thailand, and the inner box section was also rusted out, and the floor is also rusted, and the firewall is also rusted. And then we go up into the engine bay, and that's all rusted and that's cracked. So I'm just waiting on a finger sander so I can rough all this out and then shape it out with a finger sander, because there's a bit of a corner in there. Replace all of those. I'll come back to the chassis box section repair in a moment. And I decided to take the seats out and the carpet and the underfelt, which in the front section only, the rear section is all dry and sound from what I can see. There's the chassis rail going up through there. So I'm going to slice some of that floor out as well. More damage to the floor down in that corner. I'll end up taking the dash right out because there's rust higher up on the driver's side. And there's also some rust back here. And this floor has had a hit up at some stage, but I've already pushed half of that back down already. I found the other day when I went to open the door, because I've got jack stands just under the sill under here, under the chassis rail I should say rather, that this door didn't want to open, and I thought it was a lock problem, but the car was flexing because its neck has almost been broken. So what I did today was, because that whenever I jack it back up with that hydraulic jack, it's okay for about an hour or so, but naturally being hydraulic and a $50 special, it sags. So I've got a piece of teak from Father's supply of the old rice barn here, and just a test piece that I did this morning on my Lazada bender, which is like Amazon in Thailand or Alibaba. And I just made it over length and just wedged it in until the door started opening and closing normally again. Like there's no resistance, it goes all the way in now, whereas before it was jammed up. I'll just pause for a moment. So using the paper tracing method, after cutting out this box section here, sorry about the focus with my hand in the way, and that brake line, I managed to make this section up using my cheap little folder and, as I said, the paper tracing method. And I'm watching through the camera, so it's a little bit hard to make this fit. There we go, that sits in there, and there's a drain hole with a lip on there that I've got a bead former coming, so either that or I'll just panel bead a bit of a lip in. So that's the inner box section of the front chassis. But before I weld that, I also do three plug holes up the top there to plug onto the top flange there, because these are all pressed sections welded together in the factory. I've got some rust converter that's just arrived today, so I'm going to clean all that up, but I'm waiting on a finger sander attachment that goes onto my 5-inch grinder, so I'm going to get in there and get rid of as much of that as I can. Then I'm going to put a doubler section from the inside of that, because I believe there was one before, onto here, and just plug weld and weld around the edges a little. It'll just be a thin strip to join there. I may do one here as well, and then this guy can go in afterwards. So at the moment I'm just trying to get one panel made per day, one rust infill. What I did, I managed to get the 5-inch cordless grinder in here on an angle and grind this outer chassis frame that goes back under the floor there back on an angle, so when I weld this inner section in, I can get good penetration there, and then grind that flat, and then when the new section goes on top, that will also be a little bit shy, and I can just fill it all up with a vertical up. I found some really nice, just by chance, some nice 1mm gasless MIG wire that came with the welding machine, a little inverter machine that I purchased here. So that's going to weld up really nicely. I've done a couple of tests with it already. I'll show you part of that in a moment. So here's the original lollipop bush mount, I think they're usually referred to, which is for the lower control arm, for the rear mount of the lower control arm on the front suspension. And the chassis rail usually has this section welded in with these two collars, and originally I believe they were all part of a factory style rivet nut, and they go into the counterbores in the lollipop arm. So here is what's left of the bottom chassis rail. So I picked this out because it was sitting inside there, but also with some pressed reinforcements here, and as you can see there is a pressed reinforcement there which I'm going to duplicate, and I'll superimpose a photo of what was left of these nuts. Surprisingly they were still holding, but not by much. So I just ordered a couple of M10 coupling nuts off Lazada, and put those on with the gasless MIG. If you don't look too close, the welds are okay. It was a bit of a rush job. That was the first welding job I'd done with it. I just wanted to see how it welded on. So that was a nice hot weld in there, and it really doesn't matter anyway because that all goes together, and then the bolts come up through there and sandwich it all together. And like I said, there'll be the two reinforcement sections, stiffeners, so this doesn't collapse up into the car or distort left or right or lean with the cornering, and especially braking loads, because when we were driving this home, this being the left hand side front like that, I think something like that sits approximately like that, and I can't remember, that goes on something like that. Can't remember which way now, to be honest, but we'll work that out when we get to it, like that. Anyway, when I touched the brake, because this bush was also flogged out, the car was pulling left, because the whole left suspension was just moving left. Not sure where the other part is now. There's the control arm. I've already pushed those bushes out. I'll superimpose a picture of how I did that using a online kit that I purchased. The centre rubber was there, but it had a good 12mm or half an inch of slop in it in any direction. Apologies for the disjointed video. This is just wet because we just got a rain shower here in the afternoon, but this has been hanging here for a few days. It's dry. I just cleaned the sway bar up with a paint and rust remover disc in the 5-inch. It came up pretty well. I paid a little more attention to here because that was that had some binding or something going on there at some stage, so I just polished that back as well as I could without losing too much material thickness. And I'll put some rubber lube inside the new sway bar mounts. I've got all new suspension components, new brake hoses. I'm just going to run those brakes out for now because the pads are quite thick, as you can see there. But I might order I've noticed on Lazada they've got caliper refurb kits, so I might pull those out, give them a very light hone, and just to see those brakes out until they're ready to be done. My engine crane arrived today, so the radiator, which is leaking, and the motor and gearbox obviously the bonnet has to come off to do that. That will come out in the next week, so I can get in here to work as much as I can. I've released the wiring as much as I can through that grommet hole there, but I think once I take the dash out I may be able to unplug most of it. I don't really want to unplug it from the back of the car just yet, so I'm hoping I can just work around that just by putting either old welding gloves or see if I can find some patches of leather somewhere, or even just wet rags around the wiring to protect it when I'm welding. Then we'll come around here to the battery box. I'll just move that terminal so the camera might focus. The bottom of the battery box is pretty good actually, surprising for this car. From evidence I can see, this car was flooded at least up to the dashboard at some stage in its 40 years down in Bangkok, which wouldn't be unusual down there at all. But as you can see here, I've got a fair bit to cut out. I think a lot of this rust occurs on these BMs because they have such thick sound insulation inside and out, and it just holds the water and mud in between and just gradually works away at the paint, gets through wherever it can, and then away she goes. So I've got a bit of work in front of me, but as I said earlier, if I can just get one repair patch fabricated per day, welding doesn't take long. That's what I used to do for the largest part of my career was being a fitter and welder. So that doesn't worry me at all. It gives me something to do in early retirement. So I've just pulled back a bit so you can see, but you would have seen a photo insert in the beginning of the video. You can see why I fell in love with the thing, but unfortunately, the guy who assured me that lives between where we live up here in Chiang Mai and down the other end at Bangkok, he assured me that the car had no rust. And just as I was pulling in or walking up to the car in the government garage to have a look at it before we went for a drive, I just knelt down to look under it, and he raced up to introduce himself to me, so I didn't get under it, and then he goes, "Let's go for a drive," and then I just forgot and took his word for it that there would be no rust underneath. And as you'll see at the beginning of the video with the photo inserts, you'll see that where the tyre changing guys pointed out to me when they took the front wheels off, pointed out the disaster. But we'll get there. I basically got what I asked for. People said, "What are you going to do in early retirement?" I said, well, I'd like to find an old car to do up. I just didn't think it was going to be this one that was going to be the major project. Anyway, thanks for watching this disjointed video, and I hope to post more up and hope you enjoy the progress. Bye for now.